มึงเป็นไผเขามาเพื่อนกูยัง บ้าแล้วมึงอยากกินข้าวกูบ่
ขอโทษให้ก็ขึ้นเคลื่อนพิษ
นี่ยังวะ
ย้อนแหละมึงต้องออกมาดอกอัดตัวดีๆนะแนวหน้าอยู่วะมึงจะกลับมาอีกเด้อจับกูได้เถอะนะลากคอมึงให้ตำรวจรถขึ้นมาอีกจับได้เถอะนะมึงส่งให้ในบ้าน
Hi everybody. Hi Mattie. Hello.
From Lao.
Hi. So you're now in Vientiane, is it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the trailer that we just showcased is the trailer of The Long Walk, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is it the 13th film made in Laos to date?
The film was the 13th film made in Laos.
Yes, your first film. Okay, so would you say this is the 16th or?
No, I think it's probably like 20th or something.
20. Okay.
19? I'm not sure.
All right, cool. And it has been screened at the Venice Film Festival.
Yes.
And then in many other festivals as well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Toronto as well. Yeah, so many other film festival. And welcome today, the director, producer of the whole film. And my name is Jasmine Suraya, and I will be your moderator for today. And we will be talking to Mattie on your creative process, why you made this film, the technique, and then basically just the film and also Laos's film industry in general.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah, but a very exciting one. So we've already got people coming and watching the live session. So let's go into the first question. What is the main message that you would like to deliver from this film?
I mean, there's a lot in this film. As you can see, like there's a lot to unpack in this film. But in reality, I think that the main message from the story is if you have regret, if you're suffering from grief and from loss, there's nothing you can really do to go back and change it. Even if you had the opportunity to go back and change it like the old man did, it's almost, I don't want to sound fatalistic, but that's what's happened, that's what's transpired. So that might be what was meant to be. And in the end, we have to be able to find ways to cope with it, to be able to move on in a healthy way. Because, you know, it can eat away at you. It can become extremely toxic to live with that kind of regret weighing you down for the rest of your life.
Right. Okay. Okay, cool. I had another question, but then I forgot about it halfway because it was about regret as well. Then I thought, okay, maybe that wouldn't like gel into the whole thing. Cool. What is the most difficult part when you directed this film?
Oh my God, everything is so difficult about this film. This film, like, seriously nearly fell apart, like, the first time. We actually had to put a hold on the film 1 week into shooting it and replace our DOP and, like, completely find a whole new, like, department crew, new camera crew. and I had 2 or 3 weeks to do that. And so, like, there was a whole, I mean, the majority of that time I spent lying on my back staring at the ceiling and crying because it had blown up in my face so badly. But, you know, like, when people who are trying to be filmmakers understand that, like, it doesn't matter who you choose, like, what they've done before, how experienced they are, what kind of equipment they have. They need to be able to understand your vision. They need to be able to know what you're trying to do, and they need to be a team player with you. They need to respect you as a director. And if you don't have that, then, like, it just falls apart. But when we found a new DOP, which, by the way, horror film, genre film pride, our Asian compatriots, even people overseas who make horror films, were like so fast to come knocking on my door and say, I have a guy for you. I have a girl for you. I have a camera person for you. And in that 2 weeks, I spent watching more than 20 different DOPs, different camera people's works. And I had like a selection. The problem was, how do I get them to allow? You know, and I ended up finding this American guy, this young American guy in California. And we brought him to Asia. And in 2 days, I prepped with him and we reshot the whole film. I didn't use a single frame from the old cameraman, not a single frame. And
so this happened halfway or before the shoot? Like, you guys shot something before?
First quarter, because we shot for about, I would say, almost 28 days or 30 days, and we lost a week. We were shooting a week with a person who didn't understand what I wanted and what I needed. So yeah, like 25% of the shoot, this happened, and we didn't get extra days. In any over excesses, I cut from my own side of the budget, as well as my husband, who is a screenwriter, also cut from his own side. We didn't ask for a budget increase, so that was super hard too, to make the same film that we wanted to make with less time and less money. Plus, we were shooting in the loud jungle. Like, that's pretty hard. Like, we had like a family of elephants come and steal our snacks. That was interesting.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Wow. Okay. So basically, your husband wrote the script.
Yes.
Christopher Larson, and he has also written 2 of your other films, which was Chantale or Cantale?
Yes.
Chantale. Cantale. Chantale. Okay, Chantale. Oh, Chantale. All right, and Dearest Sister. So you wanted to write something about regret, but why? Why is regret so prominent in your film? Is it something that you witnessed happening to a lot of people in Laos, you know, when they had regrets in the past, or does it come from a personal experience for you?
I think it's pretty universal. You know, anybody who has suffered loss is going to question circumstance of how that came to be. But this film was probably one of my most personal films I've ever made, because I personally lost my mother, and I personally lost my dog around, I was 25 when I lost my mother, and it was a similar circumstance. When in the film, when the mother dies, I modeled her death after the death of my mother, and we actually spent an entire shooting day just getting that scene right with a little boy and his mother. And you know, I really wanted the death to be realistic. And I hate watching people die on films because it's so pretty, it's so perfect, and most people don't die like that. You know, death is really ugly, and when you're staring it in the face, it's confusing at first, it's shocking at first, because you know that it's happened, but you can't process it. And it's something that stays with you forever.
Okay, and would you say that scene that took you the whole day, would you say that's the most difficult scene of the whole film?
I would say that was the most difficult scene, besides, I mean, spoiler alert, what happens to the boy at the end. That was pretty difficult to control with the art.
Oh, yeah, that was, I was shocked.
Yeah, and the disaster that had happened in Malaysia as well, right? Wasn't it in Malaysia? Happened like a few weeks before we shot that scene. where the actors got hurt and were hospitalized because there was an explosion. Was that in Malaysia? There was a film where they had it was supposed to be a village fire, and and then like it got out of control. There were benzene fumes that had drifted out, and the fire went out into the cast. I don't remember if that was Malaysia or where that was. It could have been in
I can't remember.
But it was like the same time. And I remember when we had to go do that scene, it was late. It was one of those days where we had worked like all day and all night. Like one of the non-union days, if you know what I mean. Because it was like something we had to do and we had to get done. And it was a little scary, you know, to accomplish that. But in terms of difficulty, it was difficult because we were up late and we were worried about the danger. But it wasn't, in terms of performance and directing, was not as difficult as directing the mother dying, I would say.
Right. And okay, so what is the most difficult aspect of pre-production? Was it like, I mean, for you, I mean, generally in Laos, like, was it getting the cameras in, or, you know, the people in, or the permits? What is generally the hardest part for you, pre-production and production-wise?
Everything is hard. Like everything is hard in Laos except getting the permits. The permits were like initially difficult because the story is not something that Lao has ever had to face. It's a little extreme. If you think about the content deeply, like the film is quite extreme and dark. And so the government was very uncomfortable with it at first. But we have so few filmmakers in Laos, and our Department of Cinema is also very small, so they all know each of us very well, very personally. So like even them being uncomfortable with it, like they would tell me, you know, like, Mattie, like, what are you trying to do here?
Yeah.
And so we had a very open dialogue about it, and initially they weren't so open to passing the script, but like I said, they understood and they were happy that it did so well. But like getting equipment is crazy hard. It's like super difficult. Normally we get our equipment from rental companies in Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah, and it comes across the border, but the whole like duties and border control taxes.
By car, is it? By car.
Yes, by truck. Yeah. And there's so much paperwork. It's really it's not very opaque as to what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to do it, and it's a little like, it's super confusing and can get expensive. Bringing crew is very difficult. Like it's easy to do their visa, especially since I've made 3 films now, and so the government's very happy to give my foreign crew working visas to come here. But arranging their flights, they're from all over the world. Like I have crew from Laos, from Thailand, from France, from America, from like just all over the place. And like getting the timing and the schedule over is like so hard, and getting them adjusted to here. Like I like working with a lot of our Southeast Asian crew because they already kind of understand what it's like to be here in Southeast Asia. The heat, the humidity, the spicy food, like that works. But like when I bring Europeans and when I bring Americans, it's like, yeah, so if you can't flush a toilet, just keep pouring bowls of water down your toilet. It's gonna be fine. There's a bucket if you need it.
And did they have a super hard time like the foreign ones?
This time was not so bad, to be honest. This time was great because every time I make a film, I try to like summarize it for them in a way that is like super negative so that they'll be prepared. I'm like, hey, coming to Laos making a film with me is like coming to make a film during the worst camping trip of your life. Like really, like the worst camping trip of your life. And it's gonna be okay if you can handle that. And nothing is gonna go according to plan, but something will work out, and you just need to chill. And if you understand that, it's cool. Before this film, we had a lot of issues with that. The foreigners, you know, not understanding how like laid back Lao lifestyle was. My friend David's here. Hi, David, woo man. He knows. He bicycled through Singapore, through Malaysia, and through Laos. Like, so he's seen it all, the bad camping trip. And this crew was way okay, because like I really prepared them for it. I was like, we're gonna be out in the jungle. You're not gonna have any of the creature comforts that you want, and it's just, you just have to understand that this is how it's gonna be. And in a way, because I like kind of prepared them for the worst, they were mostly pretty comfortable when they were here because they were prepared. And my French crew, who did the effects makeup, they'd been here before, so they were like, we know now. Like they even have,
we know what to bring.
Like heat resistant silicone for like the wounds and stuff.
All right, cool. Chandler has a question. How different were what you originally envisioned the film being like, and how it eventually turned out? I was going to ask that at the end, but yes.
Thank you for asking, Chan. To be honest, there were some small differences. There always are. I mean, the film gets created in multiple stages. It gets created in script form, then in production, it becomes a new thing, and then in post-production, it becomes a completely different thing. But in terms of this film, I spent a lot of time dwelling on the script before we even started picking the crew, before we even started shooting. It took a while for us to get the film together and to get the finances together for the film. So I was pretty aware of what I wanted visually, like super aware of what I wanted visually. And I think, I'm not saying that it made me difficult to deal with, because like if you spoke to my DOP, he'd say like, oh, I love working with Mattie. I love working with Mattie. She knows exactly what she wants. But there were times when like we didn't have enough equipment. We didn't have the right kind of equipment as a small, tiny indie Lao production to necessitate how to get the things that I wanted. But you know, whenever my DOP is like, I don't know how we're going to do that, we don't have this or we don't have that, I just was really intolerant. I just be like, we'll find a way, because like it's not going to appear overnight. We can't like just pick up the phone and be like, hey, like Shopee.com, can you bring us like a new camera rig? You know, we're in Lao. We don't even have post office mail to our home.
Really?
So no, okay. We don't have mail delivery to our homes. We have to go to a PO box. And I was like, we'll have to figure it out. And there was times where we were like, let's like climb up this freaking bamboo tree or this like coconut tree and like aim the camera down. That's the way we got to get it. And
wow.
So we got really creative. But I would say there were scenes cut out, Chen. There were scenes that were cut out for length. And one of the things you realize when you're in post-production and you're editing is like, it seemed important in the script. It seemed important when we were shooting it, but in the overall package, it wasn't necessary. So for me, like the look is how I wanted it to look. The story played out the way I wanted it to play out, but it's missing some small things that, of course, it would be nice to have, but the film already like was quite long, so.
Cool. All right. So you combine the life of a peasant in the village with supernatural elements and the technology of the future. Why would you use this technique to present the message of changing dark memories of the past in order to move forward more peacefully? I think it's a matter of like, how do you combine someone in the future, 50 years later and 50 years in the past, into a film? Like, how do you come up with that sort of idea? I think I was initially like, when I was watching it, I was wondering, could this boy be the old man? But then they were talking next to each other. You know, is that his imagination? So it's like a time traveling kind of thing. Yeah,
I mean, they're definitely the same person.
Yeah. Okay. I was a bit confused. Yeah.
No, they're definitely the same person. But I say sort of because as the old man goes back and makes changes, you know, I want you guys to think of it as a loop, because he can never go back before the changes that he makes, because the little boy keeps living life. You know, his time keeps going. So every time the man circles in, he's circling to the point after he's made a change, you know, to the point that he's already encountered the boy. But at a certain point, like once he starts making changes in the little boy's life, while it is genetically, physically him, in a way, it's no longer him, because that little boy starts living a completely different life than him. You know, like when he says, yeah, my dad left me, and the little boy's like, yeah, or the little boy says, my dad left me. He's like, oh yeah, my dad left me too. But then they realize that their dad left them for different reasons. And then one got more abused than the other because their I guess you say their timelines are starting to splinter and to branch off. So every time the old man is coming back to his present timeline, you can almost imagine that the life that he had before has been destroyed, and he's replacing whatever new timeline he's created, whatever splinter he's created. And that's why he doesn't know what's happened. So when he's like, when did this cabinet break? Like, he has no recollection of the cabinet breaking because he's never experienced that. It happened in the boy's timeline, and he's come to his time, to that boy's timeline as an adult now. And, you know, his roommate Lena's like, it's always been broken since I moved in. It's always been broken. And he's just like freaking out, like, wait, no. Something's, and small things start becoming big things, you know. But for me, the reason why I played with the time, oh, thanks. Yanni says I'm so ugly. I mean, you don't have a profile picture, so I can't imagine what you look like. That's sweet. Go Malaysia. So one of the things that the reasons why I used that 50 years difference is because I felt like the huge difference was actually not big. There's new technology, there's new rapid development, there's advancement in their lives. But Jasmine, like, some things never change. Like, he's still living in a hut. He's still living like as a sustenance
in his
farmer.
old house, right?
In his old house, right? He's still like selling scrap metal. They're like, and the problems of the world have not changed just because we have more technology, you know. And that's one of the statements that I wanted to make, was just like, we can have all these advancements in the future, but the core issues that we hold and harbor in our hearts are still there.
So was it hard, like, when you wanted to describe how to make this film to your DOP, because you only had 2 days to prep it to your new DOP, right? Was it hard to describe it, or rather getting funds for it?
Yes. Getting funds was like crazy, because as you can see, like, the film itself is a really complex, tightly wound package, and you kind of have to describe everything. And the pieces don't really fall into place until you're like overall more than halfway through the film. Maybe like, actually, to be honest, at the end of the film is really when the pieces fall into place, right? Where you like really understand like what's going on. And so like encapsulating this in like a short, like, hey, this is the film I want to make. It's like a time travel serial killer film with ghosts. So it was like the easiest way for me to say it.
But it's like, wait, how? And you want to shoot it in Laos? How? What?
Yeah,
How?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. It's
Yeah.
a serial killer film in a rural Lao village. There you
No,
go.
but then also I feel that, like, because, you know, if you were to do a quick reference, Bicentennial Men, where there were also something like in the future, you know, in terms of infrastructure and technology that surrounds them. But then your setting is the same. You've got that whole, the market, you've got the house, you've got that street where he walks, the river. Yeah. Is it a statement to describe Laos's progress in that 50 years? Does it come subconsciously to you, or is that something you really want to make?
It was a very conscious effort for me to portray my perspective of development in Lao, and how things happen very suddenly, and how certain technologies like appear suddenly and then just like wash over everybody. But then the real effect is like more urban people, more wealthy people maybe are able to benefit more in terms of their way of living, whereas some rural people may get forgotten and may get left behind. And that's something that, like, I noticed that now we can still go out to the countryside and still find houses like that, like from the old man. And we're here in 2021. We apparently have had 450 plus years of Lao as a country, and yet there's still people who are living, there are people who are living in condos, there are people who are driving Rolls Royces that have like overhead lighting, mood lighting inside their Rolls Royce. And then there are people living in huts who may not even have access to like
electricity
or internet or anything that all of the other city people have. And so it makes me think like, what is Laos in 50 years? And I don't know. I'm not a time traveler, you guys. That's fiction. But I'm curious. Like, I would be curious to know what Laos would be like, you know. But one of the things that I feel very proud of about Laos, in some ways being unchanging, is like how we are still very community oriented. We're still like super sweet to each other. Like I said, my friend David, who's here in this chat right now, he's been here and he's like experienced like just walking into a place and people like being, hey, you look like a Malaysian Manny Pacquiao. Like, come sit, have a beer, have some ice cream. And they're like,
oh, I love that.
It's like that still here. Like, even in the city, it's like that. You can be a complete stranger, a foreigner, and people are like, oh, where are you from? Wow. And they're like, so kind. And this is something that I also added in my film too, where like people still have heart for each other, even though like horrible shit is happening, right? In this film, like it's a really dark film, but yet the village lady still comes to check on the little boy, and the monks are still taking care of him, and you know, like Lena, who even though she's a jaded city person, still tries to like make amends with the old man and tries to take care of him, and he encourages her to go with her girlfriend at the end, you know, even though he feels like he'll lose his only like speaking companion. And so I tried to imbue that as well. Denise had a question, but she disappeared. Well,
I mean,
she's up there.
Coolies. So if you were to shoot the film again, what would you do differently?
Well, I'd erase that whole first week where I had to hire a new DOP, or where I had to get rid of an old DOP. That's what I do differently. I just start out with this DOP that currently shot the film. Like from
maybe after seeing the film, because sometimes as you shoot it, and then when you start to edit it, and then when it comes to final outcome, and you wish that, oh, were there any scenes that you thought you could have done differently or shot in a different point of view, or perhaps other scenes could have been added to make it more impactful? Did that happen to you or something?
Not in the terms of I wish I had added more things, or because if you could read the script, it's very information dense. It's very information rich. The script was very complete. What I would have done differently, I think, is like if I had more equipment, I would have liked to have shown more wide landscape shots, more long infinite road shots where the road just keeps going and going and going, more shots of the city behind the ghost and the old man, and no city behind the ghost and the little boy, more like epic wide western style, you know, like cowboy style shots. But we just didn't have the time to get those, and we also didn't have the equipment capacity to get those, I would say. So like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to have a lot more money than I had to shoot this film too.
I mean, I don't know if this is PNC, but what was your production budget like? If you're not comfortable to reveal.
I won't say the number, but it was well under $300,000 US.
I see. Okay. And how long did the whole filming process take place? The filming itself?
I think it was 28 days, I believe.
Was it the longest compared with your previous films?
No, Chantilly was super long. We had no idea what the heck we were doing during Chantilly. So like we would mess up, we would like break stuff, we would like have electricity outages, and we'd just be like, oh well, let's just sit around and have some beer and snacks and wait for the electricity to come back. Oh, that was totally not working. Like we would go back and check footage and be like, ooh, what were we thinking there? Like, let's come back next week and try that again. Like Chantilly was like 60 days.
Right, but do you
figuring out how to make a film?
do you guys have a deadline for the long walk?
Yes, because the long walk started off started a lot later than it was supposed to, because the financiers did not get us our initial funding at the time that they said they wouldn't, so they kept wanting to delay it. But then the festival seasons were coming, and every festival has a deadline, and if you miss that deadline, then you're stuffed until next year. Then you just have to hold on to the film and hope that you can apply next year, and that there hasn't been better films since then, you know, that have your idea too, right? Because sometimes things come out very similarly, right, as time goes on. And so we had a massive deadline that we basically, I went like sleepless nights to try and get the film in on the deadline for Venice. I missed the Cannes deadline. I actually missed the Cannes deadline because we could not finish the film on time. And we nearly missed the Venice deadline. I came really close to calling them and saying, thank you for considering my film, but I'm not going to be able to finish the film in time for you guys. I came really close to that. But thankfully we did.
Yay! Congratulations. So we have someone. I cannot read that first word, but the last one is Sin. We'll call Sin. Why does the death of the boy didn't affect the old one, as if something changed in the past, like the boy's life? Why it didn't affect the old's life?
I kind of think it did.
Yeah. I think
it affected it greatly.
Yeah, because that affected.
I'm going to throw you guys for a loop here, because one of the things I love about this film is the different way that people read it. You know, everybody comes out feeling differently about the film, having a different interpretation of how the timelines are affected. My husband, who is the writer, does not agree with me about how the film ended and when the old man died. But for myself as the director and with my actors, and I think this is because we're Asian, and so we believe in like rebirth and karma and life cycles differently. And my husband is Western, by the way, he's American. My theory is once he burned that boy and he wakes up in the presence of the boy, or in the present with the boy dead, and he sees a boy's skull, he's not alive. Like, dude got stabbed in the femur, in like the most major artery of your body. You could actually, we researched this. If you get stabbed in that artery, you wouldn't survive past 20-30 minutes. Like, you'd just be bleeding out.
In that part of your leg.
Right, inside the thigh. So you would die within.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's bad. And this guy, like, uncovers a boy's corpse. He walks down the road. He washes the boy's bones at the river. He brings her and buries him. He brings him and buries him with the girl. And then he goes back and has tea with the girl. I believe the reason why he can hear her speaking when they're doing the tea, she's giving him the tea and the medicine symbolically so that he can understand that he's dead and he's going through the motions that he gave all the women. So like everything he did for the women, she's doing for him to help him understand that, Chow, you're dead. Like, you need to accept that. You're dead. You killed the boy. You got stabbed. You're dead. You know, and he says, I've lost too much blood. I can't help you. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, I don't want to be like you. And so he's like, well, I'm going to die. This is how the old man feels. Like, I'm going to die anyway because I got stabbed in the thigh. And the only way I can help you is to completely reset, because every lifetime, like the girl said, every lifetime that you live, you grow up to become this horrible human being, this extremely selfish human being. And so he's like, I'm just going to hit the hard reset here. And he erases the little boy. In doing so, he
managed to travel back in time. Is that the point? That he managed to travel, or is that a figment of his imagination, the boy?
Imagination. There's nothing there that is imagined at all. Everything is real.
So he went back in time.
Yes. So if you notice the details in the house, it's very particular. So he's in the house, Lena stabs him, and he's like, ah, crap. And she closes the door and locks him in. And he's like, I guess I'll just sit here and die. And you see the sun starting to set inside that room. And then the girl comes in, but it's still bright, right? It's still like late afternoon. The ghost comes in, and when she takes him out of the room, they've jumped time. He's on the porch of the childhood home. He sees the cigarettes of his dad, because in his timeline, people don't smoke regular cigarettes. They smoke electric cigarettes. He sees a lantern, the gas-powered lamp, because he's using LED solar lights, right, in his timeline. And he realizes that he's jumped time. And when they go back through the door, the little boy sitting there on the deathbed of the mother. So that is 2015 that when he's meeting the boy and killing the boy in his timeline. So he basically has two simultaneous deaths. You know, he kills the boy and he kills himself.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the part that, I was a bit confused, because I assumed that the old man was made now, 2020, 2020 or 2019 now. And 50 years ago, because, you had those white people coming in with the solar panels. It's like that didn't exist 50 years ago. Like, especially not in
the boy is in our present.
Okay.
2065, 2070.
Oh, and that explains the chip.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
next your question, the person who asked, Red, right?
As if something changed in the past, like the boy's life, why it didn't affect.
So,
but yeah.
It massively affected him. By the time he came back to see the bones and to do all that, he's in purgatory. He's dead.
Yeah, because he killed the boy. So when you killed is it the same thing as you killed your younger self, so your older self don't exist anymore? Is it something like that too?
To be honest, according to the rules of time travel that we had set, he technically could still be alive, because he splintered off another branch of existence, and because he's already lived his life and the little boy has lived his life, it could be that he could exist in an alternate timeline. But in my case, what I believe, which, like I said, my husband doesn't agree with me, is that he's already dead, if not from the blood loss from killing the boy. And that's why when he's in that field of flowers that his mother loved, he can hear the girl talking, because the veil between life and death has already been lifted. He just doesn't know it. He doesn't accept it. And when she asked him, does it hurt? And he was like, he has his moment. He says, does it matter? But he has this moment of realization that he's been stabbed and he doesn't feel anything, he's been walking around. He's been doing all these activities. He's washed all this blood out into the riverside. And he's just like, I guess it doesn't really matter. And she's just like, you dead.
Right. And so do you have any other different version of the ending though for the film, or was that definitely something that you wanted?
Two different versions.
You had two different
versions, and my husband's version, which by the way, he wrote this version. What you guys saw in the film is what he wrote. But when we were when I had made that first edit of the film, and then I went to Paris and we finished the almost final edit, I sent it to everybody in my team and crew to watch so that I could get their comments. And he felt, wow, actually when the girl leaves the old man to die on his own, because, his ghost, I'm sure he doesn't reach rebirth. I'm sure he doesn't. He's such a conflicted soul. He is such a tormented soul. He's a spirit lost in his own purgatory. But when she leaves him and goes onto the road to re-meet the boy, and she takes the 2 tangerines that were offered, right, the 2 oranges, he was like, oh, I think it should just end there. It's beautiful. She sees that, before the old man died or understood that he died, he still left her to the 2 tangerines for her and the little boy. By the way, that's why he put 2 tangerines on the shrine. It was meant to be for her and for the little boy, because he knew the little boy was burnt to death. And she takes the 2 tangerines and she walks up to the road to go meet the little boy through the night, right? And the sun comes up and everything's in color because they're both dead together, her and the little boy, and they re-meet. But he was like, you should just end it there. She walks off with the tangerines. But for me, I really wanted that bittersweet ending where the girl, she doesn't have rebirth. She doesn't get to move on. But at least, even though she's stuck in her time, she's stuck as a ghost haunting this road, she still at least gets to reunite with the spirit of the favorite version of him, which is the boy, not the old man. and that at least they get to hunt together and have oranges together. It's really sweet but sad, you know, like it's super sad.
Yeah, that he's such a lovable boy. I mean, your casting was spot on. Yeah.
How my casting? He also only had 2 days to prepare, by the way. We had a different boy cast. Yeah.
So you had a different boy and you had a different DOP and you shot 25% already.
But I didn't shoot 25% with a different boy. I shot 25% with that boy, and then he had a break and he came back. So that was all right.
Right.
So how I had a different boy and he couldn't cut it. Like, it's hard work being on a film, even though like children work way fewer hours than adults, you know. And he only worked 4 days a week, so he worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, so that he wouldn't have to miss so much school. No. I think he only missed 1 day of school a week, and of course we didn't give him like there was a village holiday, and we didn't let him have the holiday because it's like, well, you don't have school on that day, so you should, you know, come and shoot on that day. But we promise you we'll have fireworks and fancy food, and it'll be fun. But I remember he didn't understand that during that day off from school that he would have to come and shoot, and so like we went to pick him up and he was gone. He was out like boating with his little friends. And we had to track him down and bring him back on set. And he cried. And I was like, oh, I didn't understand. He's like, I didn't have school today, so I was going to the party, to the festival. And we're like, when you don't have school, you come to the set. And it was terrible. Like, it was so hard for him. But then what was funny was, like, they work a lot fewer hours than the adults. They miss 1 day of school a week. And he started to learn that missing school meant he could come to the set, and he loved going on set because we let him have soda, we let him eat all the snacks he wanted to eat. You know, he was like the king on set because we loved him. He was so adorable that he started to skip school and would just show up on set, and we're like, hey Paul, what are you doing here? Aren't you in school? And he'd like tell us, no, my teacher let me off to come, like, you know, hang out with you guys. And we're like, okay. And then we would call the teacher, and the teacher's like, oh, he said that he had shooting, and so he didn't come to school today because he said that you guys needed him to shoot. And we're like, oh, no. No, this is not okay. And so that was difficult, like getting the little boy to understand that like he couldn't use us as an excuse to like leave school.
Such a smart, cunning boy.
Well, that's why he was doing the film, because he was really smart.
Yeah. All right, cool. How do you feel that this film successfully, how do you feel? Okay, so perhaps, skip that question. The film has successfully, you know, made its round at film festival. How do you feel about that? And were you pleasantly surprised?
I was shocked. I was like, super shocked. My producers, Anik and my executive producer, Todd, had a lot of, Todd is more like my mentor. He wasn't able to executive produce this film, but he was an associate. He helped us with the script and guided us through. They were so certain that this film would do well in festivals. They were like, oh, it's going to go to like big festivals. It's going to like, I was really sick and tired by then of the whole like expectation that we filmmakers like have to make certain kinds of films to go get into certain festivals. And I was feeling pretty jaded. And I also feel like, not so much as a woman, but almost as a mixed ethnicity and mixed nationality person, that I didn't think that people necessarily were looking for my kind of work, because the stuff that I'm doing is films that haven't been done before. Like, my whole goal in making a film is to do something no one else has done before, something unique, something fun. Otherwise, like, why bother, right? I'm not here to copy other people. I'm not here to like do something that's like a remake. And so I had like really low expectations of where this film would go, in terms of like big festivals. I was like, I want to go to the festivals I want to go to. And the majority of the festivals that I want to go to are really amazing genre festivals that do like horror, thrillers, action, sci-fi. those are the film festivals that I wanted to go to. And then everyone's like, oh, but you got to try for these big festivals. And I had super low expectations. I was like, I'm not making that kind of film. Like, this is not the kind of film that anyone's going to be interested in. But, you know, we submitted, and a lot of people I know work for those big festivals. And so they've been following the progress of the film. And they were just like, it's such a strange sounding concept. Can we please see it? Can we please watch it? And I'd just be like, yeah, whatever, watch it. Like, you're going to hate it. And when the film got selected to all these huge festivals like Busan and Tokyo and like Toronto, Rotterdam, and freaking Venice, I was just like, this can't be happening. Like, this seriously can't be happening. In fact, when I was supposed to get the result from Venice, we get 2 notices from Venice. One is if you're in competition or not, and the other is like for the other sections. And so I was like at Chatuchak Market in Bangkok with my friend who's a dress designer. He designs all my dresses, and he was like, you haven't talked to me about what you're going to wear at red carpet festivals, like festival red carpets yet. And like, we were so many beers deep, and I was like, it's not gonna happen, Jackie. Like, don't worry about it. Like, don't think about it. But you know, I'm so happy that you always think of me about what I'm gonna wear on the red carpet. And he like hugged me and he said, oh, you know, like, at least you tried. At least you tried. And then I got the first email, and this is like seriously late at night in Thailand. Got the first email, and it said, you did not make it in the competition in Venice. Thank you for submitting. Like, dear John, you suck. I was like, and I like showed him. I was like, see, like, it's not happening. And we just started to get wasted, like messy drunk. And then a storm came, and everybody was like huddled under booths and tents because it's an outdoor market. And then my phone kept going off, and it was just like ringing nonstop and like beeping nonstop. And I was just like, what is going on? I already told my husband that like I was gonna go like drink myself into a stupor and not come home because like I knew I missed, you know, I didn't make it to Venice. And I just picked up the phone, and my producer's like, check your damn messages. And there was the acceptance to Giornate degli Autori in the other section of Venice. And I was just like, I am not in a current like sober state to process this. And I like read it twice, and I was like, is this right? Is this true? And I like made my dress designer read it, and he was like, ah. So yeah, it was more than a pleasant surprise. I like didn't believe it the first time. I was just like, no, I'm reading this wrong. Like, I'm obviously too drunk to read this email.
So do you think like, you know, by successfully, you know, I think Dear Sister did quite well as well, right? It was the Laos's entry for the Academy Awards.
Yeah, but Dear Sister did well in later. So it went to BFI, and then it went to Sitges, and then it started to, and Fantastic Fest, and it started to gain traction from the sorts of audience that know how to watch this kind of odd, not quite genre, not quite drama, not quite art house, not quite thriller film. It's like all of those things. And then it started to gain a lot of traction afterwards, but I did not get into those big festivals with Dear Sister. And that's why I felt set up for failure, where I was like, I'm not that kind of film director. I'm not the kind of film director that gets into Toronto. I'm not the kind of film director that gets into Busan. And I believed it. I was telling myself that. So like, it was really shocking when I was finally like at those festivals. It was odd.
But then do you think like, because it did so, you know, both, you know, your films did so well, like, you know, contrary to what you expected initially, would you say that maybe this slowly opened up the creative doors in Laos, or perhaps maybe the government or organizations there would start, hey, you know what, I could pour in some more funds, you know, to bring up a certain level of you know, standards. Let me put in more money. Yeah.
Yes and no. Yes, in that I feel I realize and see a market change in the kind of content we can make in Lao now. What is possible, what is feasible. There, like the stuff that I'm doing now can never have been passed 10 years ago in Lao by the government. I mean, you guys are in Malaysia, you know about censorship. Like, you also face censorship. and restrictions as well. Singapore does, Vietnam does, you know, it's just a fact of life that we live in or that we live with. But every year I see the Lao government becoming way more open to content and way more open to story. And they're very proud. Like, so when a Lao film like ours does well and brings a lot of international recognition to Lao, they're super happy. But in terms of funding, I think that it has improved what people overseas see as a potential for filming in Lao, like what is possible if they fund films that have cultural stories that are not just Hollywood America, that have stories that involve different traditions that are not like what I call, you know, the popular Asians. Because we Asians here in Southeast Asia, we're like the Asians no one wants to talk about, right? We're like, what? Like nasi lemak Asian? Excuse me? Like fermented fish Asians? We're not tea ceremony Asians, you know? We're not kimono Asians. We're not Blackpink boy band Asians that are very like famous, you know? We're the other Asians. And I feel like this has opened a lot of opportunity in terms of funding for other people to like consider the fact that, oh, holy shit, these stories are interesting too. And there's more to Asia than like Japan, China, and Korea. Like, holy crap, Asia's really big. They have like really different stories. Like, maybe we should consider those stories too. Like, Indonesia rocks. Like, why don't we go to Indonesia? You know, like things like this. Or like, hey, Malaysia has awesome, scary ghost stuff happening. Like, why don't we go make a horror film in Malaysia? Jeez, you know. And so this is something I see. But one of the things that like I'm not seeing is like locally, we don't have more funding, and it's not going to be very easy for us to get funding in locally. We don't have grants, we don't have government initiatives to have like money injected into arts and culture so much, because like we're still a developing country. Like the fact of the matter is that subject in the film, that we are a poor nation compared to the rest of our ASEAN brothers and sisters, is real. We still need to invest in making that long dirt road a regular road, you know. And so before anyone puts money into my film here locally, they should probably consider like paving that road so that, you know, the girl and the boy can have a more comfortable walk.
But then, you know, in order to get funding, do you feel pressured to make the kind of films that would appease your funder? For example, that perhaps, you know, maybe they want you to talk something more cultural, you know, because it's Laos stories from Laos, like, you know, of the peasants, of, I don't know, something, maybe they exoticize the country. Do you ever feel pressured to do stories along those lines? Because you mentioned you know.
Absolutely not. Like, I hate that mentality. I make films that mean something to me, and I hope that they find their audience. Like, I don't know who the audience is for my films, but the people who want that kind of film, it's there for them, and I hope that they love it when they see it. But I absolutely do not believe in caving into what the standard for a festival film is. I don't mean standard quality, yes. If you're going to make a festival film, you need to understand that you're competing against the whole world in terms of standard and quality. But I mean, those cliches you're talking about, Jasmine, right? The stereotypes. We are jungle Asians here in Southeast Asia, so we have to always make stories about poor people who like are missing teeth and who have like mismatched flip-flops. No, like we don't have to do that. We can do whatever the hell kind of story we want to do that is meaningful to us and is meaningful to our experience and our culture and our circumstances. To be honest, like part of the long walk was making fun of that. It really was, because, you know, if you've seen Dear Sister, it's very much a Lao Vientiane city story. And it's very much about the different social classes that exist within our city here. And there were audience members overseas, like white folk, who would say like, oh my God, this is so like weird that she's this Lao girl telling this story that's so unrealistic and so inauthentic for Lao. Like these people having champagne in an Italian restaurant in Lao, that's so inauthentic. And I'm like, how the hell do you know if that's authentic or not? You don't fucking live here. You know, like, I live here. I'm having champagne here. And the idea that like there has to be this like noble savage. So when Nook has this turn, you're following her and she's innocent and you love her, and she starts to have this turn because she's like greed has eaten away at her. They're just like, how could she like turn all the characters so dark? That's so not Lao. And it's like, you don't get to decide what is Lao. You're not the filmmaker and you're not Lao, you know? And I don't want every story that comes out of my country or out of Malaysia and Cambodia, for that matter, to have to be about the poor noble savage who like has to pick weeds off the side of the road just to eat to survive, and has to like immigrate to like a big country just to work as an illegal and like get a drug addiction and become a hooker or something. Like that is not every story in our country. We can do whatever the hell story we want to do, you know? So yeah, no.
Would you, for your next project, would you do another horror? I mean, is that something that you're considering? Horror.
I love horror. I really love horror. Horror to me is like the gateway to telling any story you want to tell without limits, without boundaries. So as you know, all of my films deal with very real life, present day subjects, like real subjects that we all live with. But when you throw a ghost or a monster in there, or you throw some like crazy fighter in there, all of a sudden you can like exaggerate and you can stretch the bounds of reality a little bit. And I love that about genre film. And so for me, I think everything I make will always have some element of genre. It may not necessarily be a ghost. It may not necessarily be science fiction, but you know, it'll be genre in one way or the other.
Cool. All right, cool. So why do you decide to feature your film at the 4th International Malaysian at MIFFest? And are you planning to feature your film on, in other platforms apart from movie?
Well, I mean, I'm super happy I got to be a part of MIFFest because I get to meet all these awesome people online, you know, Red, who met me on Instagram after they saw my film with their friends, you know. I get to reconnect with my other Malaysian friends who got to see the film. And honestly, I'm one of those, I'm older, you know, I'm 40, so I'm one of those rare, I feel the ASEAN brotherhood kind of feeling. So it's like being a part of MIFFest, to me, it's just like, yes, let's let our other ASEAN brothers and sisters see our country and our stories and our films too. Because one of the things, Edmund, hi! You guys, Edmund also has a film that's playing at MIFFest. You have to see it. Malu.
Yeah, right? Malu. Yeah.
And Edmund came back to Malaysia and did the whole quarantine thing. And Malaysians, you guys got good food. Thanks for taking care of my brother, Edmund. No, so I really want this togetherness, this ASEAN feeling to be more associative, where when you have a MIFFest, you can see the similarities between our cultures and our traditions, and you can see how different we are too, but in a way there's like this thread that kind of holds us all together, and it makes sense. I think when you watch my film, there was probably a lot that you're like, wow, that's like Malaysia, right? Yeah. So it's like similar, and that's one of the reasons why I really want to be a part of MIFFest. But I mean, the horrible answer to that is one of my friends is a programmer at MIFFest, and he'd seen the film and he'd asked for it. He'd asked if they could consider it, because of course it's not one person who chooses films, it's like a team. And if I could let them consider the film for the festival. So like when a friend asked, I'm like, heck yeah. It was Ho Hak Dong, by the way. He's like, hey, can we watch your film? And I was like, of course, I love you guys.
I love movie. Okay, cool. So, I think I've asked what I needed to ask. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Very fruitful session. Sorry for pounding all the questions for the past 1 hour. Maybe one last.
I got to see everybody online on the screen.
Yay! And Edmund is here too. Yes. Love his film. Before we end the session, do you have any words for the audience? People who have yet to watch your film, perhaps? Or have watched your film?
Yet to watch my film. I would like to invite you guys to watch the film because it's such a weird film. It's a film that it's hard to compare to other films because it's so strange. It's a deeply personal film about loss. If you've lost anyone or anything in your life that you dwell on that has inflicted trauma on you, then this film will be a very difficult but understandable watch for you. And also, like, I want you guys to see a little bit of Lao. Like, even though the situation is very tragic and dark in the film, like you can see how beautiful it is. Like Lao is very pretty.
No, but you know what I like about it?
Come to Lao after COVID because we don't have COVID anymore in Lao. So like.
Oh, really? Zero case?
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well,
so Chris said,
cases, but they're not from Lao. They're from like the plane. So.
ah.
Yeah, but that's fine because they're not in public. So you guys can come quarantine like Edmund did, and quarantine like Edmund did, and then come out and have barbecue with us. I'll take you out to see the elephants.
Woohoo! Thank you. Chris said he enjoyed the film too.
Hi, Chris. Chris. Hi. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. You can come to Lao too, Chris.
I will definitely go there. Yeah, my late dad, I think, worked on a few projects there. I think. Yeah.
Cool.
I think he was going there to look at how the settlement projects are.
Like in my film.
Yeah, because my late dad worked. This is bad, but he worked on the dam in Sarawak. So, yeah, I know. I didn't agree with.
Problem with the dam here too. Did you hear about that?
I don't know, but I think he went there to see how the settlements. I think he studied like yeah.
When they moved the villagers, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it wasn't something that I completely agree, but yeah. So anyway, yeah. Cool. Thanks for joining us, for joining MIFFest. Sorry for pounding questions for 1 hour, but I had a lot of fun. I love the movie so much.
You guys. I'm so glad that everybody could come.
Yay. Just a quick one. Is there any way that we could watch Dearest Sister or Chantilly, your previous work?
Chantilly is online like everywhere for free because it was like, I made it for $4,500. It's like, yeah, find it on Vimeo. It's like probably under my account actually. Like look at my
cool.
Chantilly is on there. Dearest Sister, I'm unsure with Malaysia because Astro owns the rights to it. So So it has played in Malaysia before. It was on TV in Malaysia as well. So that yeah, Astro has it. So you can like write them, ask them like, hey, Astro.
All right, cool. So, Chantilly is available in public. Just Google it. And then Dearest Sister, we'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. And the dog that this film is dedicated to, because this film was made for in dedication to the loss of my mother and to the loss of my dog, who I had to euthanize at the end. He stars in Chantilly, so you guys should all watch Chantilly and see how beautiful and what an excellent doggy actor he was. He's like a star.
How old was he when he passed?
He was 17 and a half, so he was, it was his time to go. You guys.
Oh my God. That was the age of my dog too. When he passed, when she passed. Yeah. And then
walk again and then like think of your dog.
Yeah. And the funny part was my dog passed away after my dad passed away. And it was in the same year. And so and my granddad passed away that year too. And it was like, everything that needed to go left.
Yeah,
so yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's
completely I could relate. Okay, I could relate. Yeah, cool.
But because I am Asian, I do believe that, things have a way of working out. And I believe that there was a rebirth in the house. See that little white thing?
Oh, that's a little cat.
Yeah.
That little cat.
That is Mango reborn, I think, because I'm loud and we believe this kind of stuff.
Coolies.
So
well then,
it's nice to meet all of you guys and to talk to all of you guys. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Mattie.
Bye, Sokdi. Oh, there we go.
ลูกสาวแม่ลูกเคยเห็นบ่
เดี๋ยวนี้พวกเขาฮู้แล้วว่าเราตายแล้วอยากให้เจ้าพาพวกเขาไปหาศพเราได้ยินไทยบ้านเขาซาว่าเจ้าสามารถลมกับวิญญาณได้ก็เลยอยากให้เจ้าหันซอยถามวิญญาณเราเบิ่งว่าศพของเราอยู่ไส
คนเราเมื่อตายไปแล้วก็บ่มีหยังเปลี่ยนแปลงคนเป็นบ้าก็ยังเป็นบ้าคือเก่า
Come, let us all, we shall join our hearts as one. Uniting love is the only way to break the barriers. Come, let us all, we shall merge our souls for tomorrow. We will celebrate the fruits of seeds that we planted yesterday. For all